Describe Azure Functions. Azure Functions is an event-driven serverless compute option that doesn't require maintaining virtual machines or containers. If you build an app using VMs or containers, those resources have to be running in order for your app to function. With Azure Functions, an event wakes the function, alleviating the need to keep resources provisioned when there are no events. Serverless computing in Azure.
In this video, we'll discuss what we mean by serverless computing. Let's begin. So as a software developer, you want to spend time doing what matters, building your application. You don't want to spend your time executing tedious, time-consuming tasks, like installing an operating system or downloading system updates. The goal of serverless computing is to help you with this by taking care of those tiresome types of server management tasks so that you can focus your effort on getting your application to your customers. So that said, serverless computing is a bit of a misleading name because there are, in fact, servers being used. But what it really means is that the responsibility of managing servers is already handled for you. So in other words, it's an abstraction of servers so that you can take your mind off of infrastructure concerns and focus them on developer concerns. There are three big benefits of using serverless approach. First, there's no infrastructure management. So that's the first big one. And as a business, this means that you don't have to focus on administrative tasks like installing an operating system. Instead, you simply deploy your code and it automatically runs with high availability. The second benefit is scalability. And as your application grows in popularity, you can rest assured that no matter what, your application will continue working under any workload. In fact, serverless compute can scale from nothing to tens of thousands of requests without any configuration. Finally, the third benefit we want to point out is that you only pay for what you use. You see, serverless computing is event-driven, and that means that resources are only allocated from a direct action. So you are only charged for time it takes to run your code instead of paying for the resources if they're not being used. And when all is said and done, time is money in the business world. And as such, you want to be focusing your time on what matters. Using Azure to support serverless computing through products like Azure Functions, your main job will simply be to upload your code, and you'll automatically get the benefits of infrastructure management and scalability, plus a payment model that will only charge you for what you use.
Azure. Benefits of Azure Functions. Using Azure Functions is ideal when you're only concerned about the code running your service and not about the underlying platform or infrastructure. Functions are commonly used when you need to perform work in response to an event, often via a REST request, timer, or message from another Azure service, and when that work can be completed quickly, within seconds or less. Functions scale automatically based on demand, so they may be a good choice when demand is variable. Azure Functions runs your code when it triggers and automatically deallocates resources when the function is finished. In this model, Azure only charges you for the CPU time used while your function runs. Functions can be either stateless or stateful. When they're stateless, the default, they behave as if they restart every time they respond to an event. When they're stateful, called durable functions, a context is passed through the function to track prior activity. Functions are a key component of serverless computing. They're also a general compute platform for running any type of code. If the needs of the developer's app change, you can deploy the project in an environment that isn't serverless. This flexibility allows you to manage scaling, run on virtual networks, and even completely isolate the functions. Describe application hosting options. If you need to host your application on Azure, you might initially turn to a virtual machine, VM, or containers. Both VMs and containers provide excellent hosting solutions. VMs give you maximum control of the hosting environment and allow you to configure it exactly how you want. VMs also may be the most familiar hosting method if you're new to the cloud. Containers, with the ability to isolate and individually manage different aspects of the hosting solution, can also be a robust and compelling option. There are other hosting options that you can use with Azure, including Azure App Service. Azure App Service. App Service enables you to build and host web apps, background jobs, mobile backends, and RESTful APIs in the programming language of your choice without managing infrastructure. It offers automatic scaling and high availability. App Service supports Windows and Linux. It enables automated deployments from GitHub, Azure DevOps, or any Git repo to support a continuous deployment model. Azure App Service is a robust hosting option that you can use to host your apps in Azure. Azure App Service lets you focus on building and maintaining your app, and Azure focuses on keeping the environment up and running. Azure App Service is an HTTP-based service for hosting web applications, REST APIs, and mobile backends. It supports multiple languages, including .NET, .NET Core, Java, Ruby, Node.js, PHP, or Python. It also supports both Windows and Linux environments. Types of app services. With App Service, you can host most common app service styles like web apps, API apps, web jobs, mobile apps. App Service handles most of the infrastructure decisions you deal with in hosting web-accessible apps. Deployment and management are integrated into the platform. Endpoints can be secured. Sites can be scaled quickly to handle high traffic loads. The built-in load balancing and traffic manager provide high availability. All of these app styles are hosted in the same infrastructure and share these benefits. This flexibility makes App Service the ideal choice to host web-oriented applications. Web apps. App Service includes full support for hosting web apps by using ASP.NET, ASP.NET Core, Java, Ruby, Node.js, PHP, or Python. You can choose either Windows or Linux as the host operating system. API apps. Much like hosting a website, you can build REST-based web APIs by using your choice of language and framework. You get full Swagger support and the ability to package and publish your API in Azure Marketplace. The produced apps can be consumed from any HTTP or HTTPS-based client. Web jobs. You can use the Web Jobs feature to run a program, .exe, Java, PHP, Python, or Node.js, or script, .cmd, .bat, PowerShell, or Bash in the same context as a web app, API app, or mobile app. They can be scheduled or run by a trigger. Web jobs are often used to run background tasks as part of your application logic. Mobile apps. Use the Mobile Apps feature of App Service to quickly build a backend for iOS and Android apps. With just a few actions in the Azure portal, you can store mobile app data in a cloud-based SQL database, authenticate customers against common social providers such as MSA, Google, Twitter, and Facebook, send push notifications, execute custom backend logic in C# or Node.js. On the mobile app side, there's SDK support for native iOS and Android, Xamarin, and React Native apps.